Welcome back everybody, Arashi here back at another upload. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a little bit of Star Wars lore. And that is why Palpatine and Plagueis actually feared Qui Gon Jinn. As we all know as Star Wars fans, Qui Gon Jinn really trusted in the Force. Him and Dooku really didn't diverge from that plan either. The Jedi had become dogmatic in their ways, only trusting in politics and serving as almost like a political force more than they were peacekeepers. And this is something that Qui Gon Jinn and Dooku didn't subscribe to. They only subscribed to the Force, and they thought the Jedi were losing their way. In fact, Palpatine and Plagueis were actually playing on that. They wanted the Jedi to keep their heads in the clouds. They didn't really realize that the Sith were over there mobilizing for years. But this all changed one day when Plagueis and Qui-Gon actually met face to face and had a discussion. At this time, Plagueis was disguised as Qui Gon Jinn, and Qui-Gon would openly tell him that his support of the Federation was causing a lot of the minority worlds and the small worlds to have financial issues. After a while of talking back and forth and having a conversation, Qui-Gon decided to end the conversation in respect for Qui Gon Jinn. But in reality, this conversation actually struck Plagueis in a weird way. He would go on to tell Palpatine about Qui Gon Jinn, and that Qui Gon Jinn was the very one who could have potentially exposed the Sith as being around. And that is because Qui-Gon was the only Jedi that actually had his ear to the streets. He was actually listening to what was going on in the world and the whole galaxy. Something that the rest of the Jedi really never actually did. The Jedi were just too busy with their head in the clouds, being political and trying to be something that they weren't. They were trying to be not peacekeepers anymore. They were just trying to be political puppets. As I stated earlier, Palpatine was extremely concerned about what was going on with Qui-Gon. Palpatine feared that if the Jedi had actually woken up for just a second and actually realized what was going on around in the galaxy, that the Sith would be exposed in a heartbeat, and that their grand plan would actually all come crashing down. So in a way, Palpatine and Plagueis were shook to their core. The whole Sith plan was about to be exposed, or potentially be exposed, and they immediately knew that they would have to deal with Qui Gon Jinn, because if they didn't, everything would be ruined. Literally everything. So with Qui Gon Jinn, they realized they had everything to worry about, but also on the Jedi side of things, the Jedi never actually trusted Qui-Gon. In fact, members of the Council even deemed him heretical in many ways, and that was mainly because Qui-Gon was free-thinking. He didn't necessarily trust in every single last thing that the Council says. Qui-Gon only focused on the Force. He didn't necessarily care what the politics or the Council had going on. He only trusted in the Force. Fast forward a few years to the events of the Phantom Menace, and this is when we would hear about Qui-Gon, Plagueis, and Palpatine all over again. Palpatine had learned that they were sending Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi to actually go negotiate with Newt Gunray. After this, Plagueis and Palpatine finally decided it was time. It was time that the Sith would actually reveal themselves to the galaxy, and it was time to launch their next phase of their new plans, and that was to actually dispatch Maul. Maul would reveal himself to the galaxy, revealing that the Sith are still around, and would have the objective was dealing with Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Things got worse for Plagueis and Palpatine once they found out that Maul actually failed to kill Qui-Gon Jinn on Tatooine. So now Qui-Gon understands that the Sith are back, and on top of that, they had found out that he had found the Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker. This shook Plagueis to his core. He really thought that the 1,000 years of planning that was going on with the Sith and hiding was all about to come to the end. Plagueis tried desperately to actually find Anakin Skywalker to lay eyes on him himself. But after that, Plagueis had learned that Qui-Gon was already evaluating Anakin with the Jedi Council, and he feared the worst possible outcome. He feared that if Qui-Gon was to be the one that trained Anakin Skywalker, that Anakin would reach his full potential and be the most powerful Jedi that the galaxy had ever seen. It wasn't Qui-Gon's power that actually scared Plagueis, it was actually his understanding of the Force and the living Force, especially the living Force. He realized if somebody like Qui-Gon got their hands on Anakin and could train him, that he would actually reach his full potential way faster and be very, very powerful. Out of this fear, he ordered Maul to actually go and take out Qui-Gon, which he eventually was successful in doing. Plagueis didn't actually care if any other Jedi were to be the ones to train Anakin, as long as it wasn't Qui-Gon Jinn. If Maul had failed to take out Qui-Gon Jinn, it would be up to Plagueis, and Plagueis would take it up upon himself to reveal himself and duel Qui-Gon Jinn to the death. All this and Qui-Gon only being led by the Force, only walking by the Force, and only trusting in the Force, led Plagueis and Palpatine actually fear Qui-Gon more than they actually feared Yoda. And they actually feared that if there were more Jedi just like Qui-Gon Jinn, that they would actually have their plans exposed way earlier, and that the 1,000 years of planning would all come to a very end. So this is why Palpatine and Plagueis actually feared Qui Gon Jinn. I think it's actually insane to think that he had caused this much of a stir within the Sith. And he had did this all completely unknowingly. He didn't know what the Sith were up to. He didn't know that Plagueis and Palpatine were even, doing all this. But yet, just a Jedi who actually listened to the Force and followed the Force and actually had his ear to the streets and listened to what was going on within the galaxy is all that was needed to actually strike fear into Palpatine and Plagueis. It's actually insane when you think about it. You think about it this way. I mean, Palpatine and Plagueis were two of the most powerful Sith that have ever been in the galaxy. Or some of the most powerful Sith that have ever been in the galaxy. We all know Palpatine is #1, but that's definitely more towards later on of his time. Or at this point, Palpatine was probably just around Plagueis' power. But Qui-Gon doing all this stuff was actually causing quite the stir. So what do you guys think about this? Do you guys think that Qui-Gon is one of the most badass Jedis ever? I personally think that he is. He's obviously one of my top 5 Jedis. I think he was in one of my top 5 Jedi videos that I did quite some time ago. I think I'm going to update that list in a future video, but as for right now, that's all I got for this video. Let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. May the Force be with you, and as always, have a great rest of your day.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.